This episode was co-produced with Gebert Rüf Stiftung, which makes science effective by initiating impact-oriented innovation projects. This year, they're celebrating their 25th anniversary and are keen to highlight the impact their initial funding has had on Swiss entrepreneurs.
I think it's super important as a foundation not to sit in your office and not to be a think tank, but go out to the street and ask the people, where is a gap? Where can we have an impact?
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Ansuya.
Hi everyone, I'm very excited today to have Pascale Vonmont with us today, and I would like to introduce her to all of you. Pascale Vonmont is the director of Gebert Rüf Stiftung, a foundation which funds innovative Swiss university projects, board member at Swiss Foundations and Venture Kick, and advisory and member on the very important foundations like the Swiss National Science Foundation, and jury member of the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Switzerland, among others. Thank you, Pascale, for being with us today. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we will start from your personal background and build up to the very impressive career that you've had with foundations. Our listeners will be really interested to know about this. This is not so often talked about. And personally, I'm also very interested to know how foundations run, what kind of impact they have, and how the journey has been for you personally as well. So you started right after your PhD in chemistry by joining the MGU Foundation in Basel University. First of all, I would like to know what motivated you to do a PhD in the first place. Like, were you looking to be a researcher? And then why did you join a foundation after that?
So I mainly studied chemistry because I was fascinated by this 100 and plus, mainly 100 and plus elements that build the whole world. I mean, you find nothing in the world that is not built by these 100 and plus elements.
That's true.
And doing then the PhD is kind of very practical, so bringing theory to life, doing your own work, but still in a team, and that was super exciting. So I loved research a lot, but at that time there was no openness for kind of flexible working models in research. And I had my PhD defense, my first daughter was 6 weeks old. So I was not interested in inflexible structures. Mm-hmm. That's why I left kind of research, but always stayed in this field of innovation, technology, science, education. I also did during my PhD high school teacher diploma and was also teaching for roughly 6 years.
Wow.
And that's why I joined then the first foundation in Basel, this MGU, Mensch, Gesellschaft, Umwelt. So it's about people, humans, society, environment.
So all of these sort of values and also their mission resonated with you, your personal values.
Yeah, it was a combination of building up something from scratch in a small team, and showing that it's possible to have in a short time really a success. And the focus of that foundation was really to have a program for all students focused on interdisciplinarity, on sustainable topics. The foundation was built after this huge fire, 1st of November 1986 in Basel, in Schweizerhalle,
wow.
in the chemical factory. So that was a huge fire. Everybody was really frightened. And with the firefighter water, all the pesticides went to the Rhine, and we had dead fishes up to Mannheim. And so the building up the whole ecosystem got people to the point that they realized we need all disciplines to solve challenges. Like we now say, we need to work on entrepreneurship from the first day at university. And we saw that now during the COVID pandemic, that we need all disciplines. So our job in that foundation was to build an education program at the university for all students. So in one seminar, you have a current topic and at least 2 or 3 professors from different disciplines, because somebody from ethics has a different view than like somebody from economics or medicine, and students from all faculties. And the goal was to have for the student credits for this program. And so we built up this program for roughly 5 years, and it's still active at the University of Basel, but it's totally implemented now in the university.
Excellent. Wow. So you really brought in that holistic view towards entrepreneurship with this program. Yeah,
there it was interdisciplinarity, but I think you need the entrepreneurial view by saying we are not a think tank, we are a do tank in a small team. We really bring things to reality, and you need this entrepreneurial thinking, not only in startups, you need it everywhere, also in foundations.
Yeah, I love the statement that we're not a think tank, we're a do tank. So that's really hits home. How did your entrepreneurial drive come already, at that time in Switzerland, in the late 80s, early 90s? This must be very pioneering and very unique to have a woman as yourself with this drive. So where did it come from?
I think it's mainly because I'm not so good in theory. I'm mostly excited if I can bring theory to really a concrete problem and in practice. Mm-hmm. And I had the privilege and the chance with this first foundation to build up their program with a small team, and then again with Gebert Rüf Stiftung to build something from scratch.
Okay. So let's talk about Gebert Rüf Stiftung. You joined that in 1999. Gebert Rüf supports projects at Swiss universities by promoting innovation through the funding of new approaches and fosters development of promising next-generation academics. So take us back to 1999. What did the scientific and entrepreneurial Switzerland even look like back then?
1998, 1999, when we started, we had great science and great scientists in Switzerland. We still have, but the transfer from science to market was not so active, not so visible. And that's why we started our first program called NETS, New Entrepreneurs in Technology and Science. And we focused on all universities. We asked them to nominate 3 candidates, every university, also the Universities of Applied Science. And our jury would select 1 from each university. Which means that all the deans of the universities had to go out of their office and say, do we have such science entrepreneurs? Do we want to have such science entrepreneurs? And we brought together a very cool group, our first group in 1999. And we did not execute the program ourselves. I think this is quite important for a foundation to not do everything themselves. So we found the best partners. In Switzerland, it was the chair of entrepreneurship in Lausanne at EPFL. The CEO was Jane Royston, and Jordi Montserrat, he was in her team. And then we knew that a Swiss startup will start local but grow global. So we, from the very first beginning, we had a part in the US, in Boston, because the Swiss Next Boston was one of the first Swiss Next, just started then. So we took the Swiss Next Boston as program partner and the Babson College to really show this first group what is thinking big. And we did this program for roughly 6 years.
Wow. And what was the impact of such a global program already back then?
So I think the impact of this program, and you always need to know as a foundation that you are small, you are super small, you can never scale. I think the impact was that in 2004, the government launched a nationwide entrepreneurship training program. It's still active today. They did a tender, and the tender was won by Venture Lab. So that was the start of the Venture Lab course. And for us, that was the moment to outphase our NETS program. But it was a program focused on Switzerland. They had no international program part. Okay. Then we approached, so I approached Beat Schillig, and I told him, you have a great concept, but the thinking big is missing. And I know this is not in your concept and not in your budget, but we offer you a collaboration. So we will outphase our international NETS part and hand it over to you. And that was the start of the Venture Leaders program.
Okay, wow. And how has it evolved since then? So, you made a lot of new initiatives during this time. How do you compare that over the years to what it has become now?
I mean, a lot evolved, and it's now a great ecosystem, but I think our role never changed. So when we phased out our NETS program, we went back to the street. And I think it's super important as a foundation not to sit in your office and not to be a think tank, but go out to the street and ask the people, where is a gap? Where can we have an impact? So we talked to a lot of people, and I just looked it up for today. People like Christian Schütz from Brain to Venture, of course, also Beat Schillig, but also Hervé Lebre from EPFL InnoGrant, Johannes Kaufmann, he was CEO at that time from CTI. We asked many people, we did interviews, workshops, and our job in the end is then to mix that. So I always say we get the ingredients and we need to mix a smoothie that tastes good and that you can sell, but everybody recognizes the ingredient that they gave us.
Right.
And the gap that they all showed us was a pre-seed fund. So kind of initial funding for the transfer of science to market, but combined still with kind of very proactive coaching and competitive. And that was the start of Venture Kick. And also there we did not execute the program ourselves. So the mandate is since 2007 when we started with Venture Lab. And the key part is done by the jury. It's over 100 entrepreneurs and investors that do the decision. So not we as foundation decide which of the projects and ideas take the next step.
So you're basically the key people in bringing important entities together and enabling things to go in the right direction.
Yeah, I think we need to find the right gap and find a program where we can have a leverage, but then hand it over. Whenever our job is done, we hand it over because normally we cannot scale as a foundation.
Of course, makes sense. You're also board member at Swiss Foundations, which is a joint initiative started in 2001 of 11 grant-making Swiss foundations, and now you're over 400 members. So what value does this joint initiative provide compared to Gebert Rüf?
We are over 200 now. And in 2001, when we started as a foundation, we knew we have to do the right things right. We always say as a foundation, you do good things, but doing good things good is not so easy. Yeah. And there was no handbook. I mean, for a company, there are many handbooks, but for foundations, there was no handbook, there was no education, just nothing. That was the reason why we created Swiss Foundation. It's kind of we say it's the voice of the grant-making foundation, but it's much more. So we give practical advice or exchange. We exchange ideas. We make education for foundation bodies, so for people working in the office, but also board members. And I think what is also key is the governance of a foundation. We created a foundation code, which is kind of our Bible. And we are also active on the political level in the sense of the political regulations for foundations in Switzerland are still quite liberal, but we have to make sure that we do everything that it stays like this, because foundations play a very important role.
Definitely. And with all of this, right, there's so many responsibilities, like you mentioned, that it also falls on your shoulders. So what would you say are the key areas that you focus on primarily for developing these foundations further?
I think key for a foundation to say that she is relevant for a society is that a foundation is not a black box. So a foundation needs to be visible. You need to be able to contact a foundation and to understand what a foundation is doing. So as a next step, we created kind of a consortia that got shareholder of a digital platform, Stiftung Schweiz, because we thought we as foundation can do this data sharing better than Google and Facebook. We can show that we can use data for the benefit of the sector, of the society, by showcasing where are gaps, by showcasing who could collaborate, and by also showcasing projects on a level that everybody can start conversation. So we don't think that this is a simple matchmaking. Simple matchmaking will never work. Yeah. We always need to start a conversation, but on a level where we use digital tools.
Excellent. And enabling that transparency, as you mentioned, right? In today's age, bigger companies, they have access to a lot of data, but they're not making it transparent and useful for the people to leverage it in the right way. So it's really great to hear that, with Stiftung Schweiz, you're doing this initiative. So let's talk a bit, when we were preparing, we talked a lot about that there's always a negative attitude that people have, and you need to manage this perception. So how do you manage that perception and manage taking risks?
I think there is never, you can never promote innovation without having failures, but we do not see these failures as waste of money or waste of time, because we always learn a lot and the projects learn a lot. So we know that roughly 30% of our projects are in that sense not a success. They do not reach the goals that they thought they would reach. But as said, it's not a failure. And we clearly see that in if we look at Venture Kick, if you look at the numbers of project ideas, the numbers of supported projects, and the numbers of still active companies, you really end up exactly at 30% of risk factor. And where is the risk? The risk is in the market. Yes. The market is not yet ready or not there. Or the risk is in the technology or in the science. And there you always need to try it. So a good example for the market is a project that started, I think it was in 2003. Alain Rollier, he started there a first ID for e-banking with Axionics, but the market was not ready at that time. And now every Swiss bank is using this, but he was kind of preparing the market. He was afterwards still an entrepreneur, is now a very successful coach. So somebody has to start to prepare a market. Right. And another example from science is a startup, Ruben, who started a startup Polyneuron, and the results in the lab were successful, but in the first clinical phase, you saw that it will not work. So he stopped this company, but he brought now all his experience into a new startup, into the next company. So, I mean, this is perfectly fine. This is the way you need to do it. And even we as a foundation, we stopped a whole area of activity. It was called Science and Design. And our idea and the gap that we also heard from the field is not design as looking nice, but design as functionality. So many startups go to the market and then they realize the product is not really that functionality that the customers and the market needs. So they go back, and sometimes it needs 2 to 3 years of re-engineering. So our thought was to have a program that helps to bring, again, like the interdisciplinarity and entrepreneurship, this design and functionality at the very early beginning. But we, to be honest, we received mainly research projects on how to do research on design. This was not what we were looking for. We had great projects. One is still active. It's called Enable. Andrea Catana is leading this program at EPFL. One was at ETH and Zürcher Hochschule der Künste. So they did programs with bachelor students from both universities. But in the end, it was not enough for a whole program. So we stopped that, but we brought the idea into our new program, InnoBooster, and allow the startups to spend money exactly on that. So it's a learning.
Yeah, it's very interesting and leads me actually to already a few questions to follow up on this. The first one is regarding the success of a program. So how do you determine like when you should stop a program or why you should stop a program?
Yeah, I mean, we really stop only if there is no chance, or any chance of getting to a goal, or we do an outphasing, like in the case of NETS, or other programs where we see our task is fulfilled, so we can hand over to another party.
Understood. And in terms of like seeing the market opportunity already beforehand, right? Like giving this example of the e-banking one, how do you determine that maybe this is futuristic but still a realistic market opportunity versus something which is not going to ever come about, in the market and never going to be a real thing?
To be honest, most of the time it's a bet into the future and nobody knows what will really be successful or not.
Right.
So you look at the team, at the entrepreneurial spirit and fire, and then I think you should let start many ideas and give them the opportunity to come to the next level.
And with entrepreneurs that, let's say, were part of the programs, they didn't succeed, and then they come back again later with a new idea. Having known them before, do you give them as well the opportunity again? Or how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. And in most of the program, we have different stages.
Right.
So you go from stage to stage and you have the chance to show, okay, I reached the next level. And yes, kind of serial entrepreneurs or scientists with new ideas are more than welcome. I think what we should not forget is we should not say it's good to have a failure. It's good to have a failure and learn from it. So if you do the same mistake 10 times, then it's not good.
Exactly. You haven't learned anything.
Yes.
Then. Makes sense. So tell us a bit about how Gebert Rüf Stiftung is a key player in this ecosystem of foundations, leveraging and making an impact.
I think the key role of every foundation is to do impactful funding, and we know that we are super small.
Right.
So all foundations need to find a gap, a relevant gap. And I think our foundation is super focused from the purpose, super focused from the strategy and the programs that we run. But I think the success is also based on our strategy to go on the street, talk to the people, see where the gap is, and build a program together with the partners that are before our program and afterwards. So somebody said once that we should be the one missing stone in a bridge, and you never build a bridge alone. But if you can bring the one missing stone that everybody could use the bridge afterwards, then it's a success for everybody. And we see our role there to ask, where is a bridge, where you miss a stone? And that we can build together.
Yeah. So how do you do, what are some of the activities involved in, going on the ground and doing the research? Is it more based off of online events, social media, or do you do like in-person events, collaborations? So what are some of the key activities there?
We have different key areas of activity, and there you have different networks, and in all these networks, we talk to key actors or key activity groups to find out and ask them where they see a gap or a next gap.
Understood. And what is the funding strategy?
So the funding strategy is based on 4 strategic topics. This is science and entrepreneurship, which means really bringing science to the market, entrepreneurs in a gap between what the government is doing and what the market is doing. Then we have science and education, which means what do we have to learn and how do we have to learn these future skills, a topic. There we support pilot projects. So also, future projects. Then we have very, very important science and society and economy, because we never do science for the society, we do science with the society. This means we have to bring science to the society in a way that they are attracted and that they are involved. So we created this wording coming from entertainment. The combination of science and infotainment gives the word scientainment. So we look for projects that fulfill these criteria of scientainment. It's science, but going really to the people, and not this inner circle of 20% that is anyway involved, but the really 80 or 100%. So this scientainment is a super important field. And the last is foundation, Switzerland and foundation. So how can we keep Switzerland as an attractive country? And this means it's this liberal foundation regulation, but that means for us as foundation that we need to stay or get professional and visible and all this.
Right. So here, basically, one of the goals of Gebert Rüf is to promote Switzerland as a top location and for business and a place to live. So how do you do this kind of marketing, let's say, to also getting your partners, investors, and donors, right?
So our goal is to support really new ideas, launch new programs, and this is why we are active in very specific topics, and they're in close contact with these communities. And I think this risk-taking, trying to be an agenda setter, a speedboat, but not a single actor is very helpful.
And what kind of companies or people do you see who are most interested in funding the programs and projects of the foundations? Like, how would you describe them?
This depends totally
Okay.
from the program. I mean, in the science and entrepreneurship, it's mainly after our support. These are investors. In the education, these are mainly governments. So we start a project program which is taken over by the government, by a canton. And in the scientific field, it could be different actors that are taking over. It could be the media, or also government or a private institution.
Okay. So to tell a bit more, to our budding founders and entrepreneurs listening, if you could describe the process, the selection criteria for projects.
Yeah, so I think it's important to mention that we are super visible. So all information is on our website. And we encourage everybody to first give us a call or send us an email in order to see if a project is within one of our focus program, because we do not want people to spend time in writing an application. Very need to say I always say after 3 seconds, we cannot support that. It's not within our area of activity,
Right.
because this is a waste of time for the customers, applicants, and it's a waste of our time, because we prefer to spend the money for projects than for overhead. So this is a first contact by phone or by email, and then it's the first step is an application that is discussed within the Board of Trustees in order to see, is it within the strategy, and is it within the ranking, because we always have too many projects. Is it within the ranking one of the top projects that we can support? And then normally we go back and say we can invite you for the second step, which is a full application, and this is the feedback of the board. Because the process for the first application, it's not really a workload like for a European project application. I think the time you spend for such an application is doable. And for many of the programs, we also have a one-step application process, like for the InnoBooster. So it takes you 3, maximum 6 months from the start till the final decision.
All right. Thanks for the information. Last question on the topic of foundations. Why is the Swiss ecosystem a good breeding ground for great startups?
I think the Swiss ecosystem is a great ecosystem because we have great universities attracting top talents. We have a top life quality in Switzerland. We have legal security. And we have really an outstanding support ecosystem. And on top, I think there is enough money to be invested. There could be more money be invested, especially in the later case.
So let's talk a bit about future plans also for the foundation and you. Gebert Rüf Foundation has been up and running for 24 years, which is super impressive. What has been some of your favorite memories from this time?
I think if I think about favorite memories, then it's always that I get up every day and love to go to work, because it's a privilege to have exchange with engaged people with exciting ideas. And I see many of them at the very start, and then maturing with their ideas, but also as a personality. So it's the one-to-one contact, but it's also this community, the exchange with the different communities, and they are super different from education to entrepreneurship. And then on top, we are a very small team. At our foundation, we are a team of 4, the basic team of 4. And the whole team is together for years. Jacqueline is with us since 2003, Corinne since 2006, Marco joined 2016. So you join to stay. So this is also kind of a family, and we have an outstanding board of trustees. You have many boards with big names, but they just join for a meeting and you never have an exchange. Our board is super involved. They evaluate the projects. They challenge us with the strategy. So it's a close collaboration, and there are really very good discussions also during the board meeting.
Sounds like such a wonderful place to work.
I always say it's a privilege to
Yes.
do such a job.
Because you're still working in this, fresh energy of a small team, and really seeing like people with the passion and the right attitude, the right also vision, like coming to life over and over again. So
yeah, it's always creating, with every new program, we start kind of a new small startup, and we work with a new community. So it's
that could never
always
get
exciting.
boring.
No, it's not.
That's wonderful. And what do you see the foundation achieving in the near future?
So we celebrate now the 25th anniversary this year, and we try to show also during this year that it's worth to create a foundation, that it also pays off. And we do that by showing the projects, the people that were with us during this 25th year. And I think the goal is also to say that we need more entrepreneurs like Heinrich Gebert that created this foundation, and you don't need to have 220 millions like he had. You can also do an endowment to an existing foundation, like ours, but also like others, or an umbrella foundation. So showcasing the benefit of a foundation like ours for the society, and in our case for Switzerland.
All right. And for you personally, what is next, Pascale?
So for me, it's, we are a spent down foundation, and we always said we will exist till 2030. So besides planning new programs, it's also the planning the handing over to partners, planning the legacy of the foundation that we will start beginning, I would say, of next year. Because for me, it's super important that what we did, that a next foundation doesn't have to start from scratch, so that we can hand over all what we've experienced and learned during our 25th or 30 years in the end.
Wonderful. As our next segment, if you could recommend some resources and gadgets for our listeners, any books, podcasts, or technology, whatever that has fascinated you or gotten to your attention.
I must admit about books that since I'm a kid, we always went to the library, and I still go to the library because I find it very cool to get surprised. Because, with all this, also with Netflix, they know what you like, and then you get always the same.
Right.
So
you don't explore anything new then.
No. So I always go to the library, and they have the table, new books, or a specific area.
Yeah.
And then I pick there a book and take it, or several books, take it home and let me surprise. And if I don't like it, then I bring it back. And at the last time I took the book, the biography of Niki de Saint-Phal, because I was at the exhibition in Zurich. And you always meet people at the library out of your business, daily business life. So it's a bit, getting off your normal in stream what you get. And I'm not so deep into this area of, so we look now, of course, all these series on Netflix, because everybody that knows me knows that I get up super early in the morning. and normally early in the morning you don't look Netflix or whatever, and in the evening I'm too tired. And about gadgets, we have tons of gadgets at home because my husband is always active on Kickstarter that we try out. I have my ring here from Aura, who is kind of the lifestyle measuring.
Right.
But else I'm not using too many gadgets. Podcast, of course, the Swisspreneur, but of course also one that we started. It's called Durchblick. It's really about science that has to do with your daily life. It's in collaboration with Blick.
Wonderful.
Because there we saw that we really can bring science to the broad public
common audience.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now we come to the fun part of the
fun
interview.
Part.
The rapid fire questions, just a few questions your way. So are you ready?
Yeah.
What do you wish you did more often, personally and professionally?
Spending time with friends.
Great. Do you prefer to make decisions alone or as a team?
As a team.
Are there any decisions you'd like to go back in time and change or fix?
No.
Wonderful. What are you as an individual most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family.
Great. Well, that was it. Pascale, thank you so much for your time. It was so inspiring, actually, to speak with you. And hope you also enjoyed.
I enjoyed a lot. Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.